Hi friends. On Monday, 15 September 2008 at 1:45 a.m., the Lehman Brothers Holdings Inc. filed a bankruptcy petition in the United States of America Bankruptcy Code for the Southern District of the New York. It was the largest bankruptcy proceeding in the US history. The 164-year-old firm was the fourth largest US investment bank, and its bankruptcy kicked off a global financial crisis. Good evening, friends. Here I, Kunal Nagpal, am addressing and bringing forward the knowledge or the core facts of the Lehman Brothers crisis, which was actually the largest crisis ever in the US history in 2008. So let's discuss the key takeaways. The Lehman Brothers bankruptcy was the largest in the US history, as we have just discussed. It invested heavily in the risky mortgages just as housing prices started falling. The government could not bail out the Lehman without a buyer. The Lehman's bankruptcy kicked off the 2008 financial crisis. The financial crisis actually impacted millennials heavily. Now, you must be thinking that why are we discussing this particular case study of Lehman Brothers financial crisis? My dear friends, this is acting as the major lesson for today's corporate scenario, for today's overall economic scenario existing at a global level, because it is the biggest learning, the learnings which we can learn and comprehend so that in these sensitive times we do not repeat the same mistakes which occurred in that particular time period, because these times are actually quite sensitive. So this requires very, very proactive and long-term visionary approaches. So my dear friends, Lehman actually used a high leverage business model that required him to raise the billions of dollars every day to keep the doors open. In 2006, it had invested heavily in the high-risk real estate and subprime mortgages. So while these markets turned south, the Lehmans couldn't raise enough cash to stay in the business, thereby leading it to actually go bankrupt holistically. Now, my dear friends, let's discuss the proper timeline of the Lehman Brothers, which can actually help us to understand, comprehend, and conceptualize what all series of events actually helped to actually led the bankrupt mode of the Lehman Brothers. We will discuss its origination, its operationalization, and its various decision-making arenas, and finally its bankruptcy mode. This will help us greatly, as I have just told, to actually conceptualize and strategize the overall functioning of the economy. It will be, this particular session will be very, very useful for the academicians, for the corporates, and for the strategists at a large scale. So my dear friends, in 1844, Henry Lehman actually emigrates from Rimpur in Germany and settles in Montgomery, Alabama, where he opens a general store specializing in the dry goods. Then in 1850s, Henry Lehman is joined by his brothers Emmanuel and Mayer, and their establishment becomes known as Lehman Brothers. Then in 1858, Lehman Brothers transitions into the cotton commodity business and opens a branch in the New York City. Then, from 1861 to 1865, the Civil War causes major devastation to the Southern economy and the cotton trade, as we are observing that the war between Ukraine and Russia led to various supply chain disruptions. So this is the similarity. So this is the basic similarity or the corollary which we can draw from Lehman Brothers and the present scenario, and what all learning lessons we can actually comprehend and conceptualize, comparing both the scenarios since both are similar. Then in 1870, Lehman Brothers helps found the New York Cotton Exchange. Then followed in 1887, the Lehman Brothers becomes the member of the New York Stock Exchange. This is actually the increasing graph. Then gradually we will see its major downfall on a gradual basis. So this is a sinusoidal curve type of functioning. Correct? Then in 1899, the Lehman Brothers takes an investment banking activity, issuing its first public offering, that is IPO, for the International Steam Pump Company. These are the major milestones of the Lehman Brothers. Then in 1901 to 1925, Philip Lehman serves as the head of Lehman Brothers. Then in 1913, the Federal Bank Reserve is established in response to the financial panic of 1907. Then in 1925, then in the period from 1925 to 1969, Robert Lehman takes over the leadership of Lehman Brothers. Then in 1929, Lehman Brothers forms the Lehman Corporation, a closed-end investment company. Then in 1929 to 1933, the stock market crashes in late October to 1929, contributing to the Great Depression and the global economic collapse. These are the major phases of the economic slowdown, which we can actually conceptualize and comprehend to today's scenario, because these scenarios are quite similar to what is existing in today's times. So this is the basic purpose of the discussion of this particular case study at this point of time, my dear friends. Then in 1933, Congress passes the Glass-Steagall Act, separating the commercial banks from the investment banks. Then in 1934, Congress establishes the Securities Exchange Commission regulating the securities industry. Then in 1950s, the post-war economic boom contributes to a rise in investment banking activities. Then in 1958, Lehman Brothers established the One William Street Fund, a mutual fund of the diversified holdings. Then in 1969, Robert Lehman, the last family member to the head of the Lehman Brothers, dies. Then in 1969 to 1973, Frederick Ehrman takes over the management of Lehman Brothers. Then in 1973 to 1983, Peter Peterson, the great pioneer, serves as the CEO of Lehman Brothers. Then in 1973, in this particular time period of 1973 to 1983, in 1973, the oil crisis brings about a significant price increase in oil and a weakening economy. Then in 1977, Lehman Brothers merges with Kern, Loeb and Company. The firm expands its global operations and business in mergers and acquisitions. Then in the period from 1983 to 1984, Lou Glucksman is the CEO of Lehman Brothers. Then in 1984, Sharon Division of American Express acquires the Lehman Brothers. Then in 1994, Lehman Brothers is spun off from American Express into Lehman Brothers Holdings Inc. Richard Fuld becomes the CEO. So these are the gradual changes in the overall management scenario of the Lehman Brothers. This is very significant if we try to understand the basic line of thread, which is holding the overall functioning of the Lehman Brothers, and finally, how did Lehman Brothers collapse? Then 19th October 1987 is basically the plunge, is basically symbolizing the plunge of Black Monday due to the global financial markets crunch. Then in 1999, Financial Services Modernization Act appeals the 1933 Glass-Steagall Act that separated the commercial from investment banks. Then in 2001, the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11 affect the global markets. This is the major event which occurred 7 years before the Lehman Brothers crash. That is in 2001, the WTC attack in the month of September, which heavily affected the global markets worldwide. Then in 2002, Lehman actually relocates its operations from its Wall Street location to Midtown Manhattan. In 2000s, the management of the Lehman Brothers actually undergoes the major changes as it buys the 5 mortgage lenders and becomes heavily invested in the mortgage back-end securities. In 2007, the financial crisis begins to unfold with the sale of the 2 Bear Stearns hedge funds in mortgage-backed securities. Now, the sequence of events in the month of September 2008. September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. This is embarking the major downfall of the Lehman Brothers company. Then the following day, September 16, 2008, Barclays agrees to buy the Lehman Brothers US operations. Then on 22nd September 2008, Nomura agrees to acquire the Lehman Brothers Asian and European operations. Then this entire tenure from 2008 to 2009 actually embarks the continuing impact of the financial crisis, causing the economic decline in national and global markets that actually leads to the Great Recession. And my dear friends, this is actually making us clear how did Lehman Brothers originate in a very systematic manner, strategize and operationalize its overall code of conduct and operations, and gradually how did its wrong decisions actually led to the downfall. So this actually helps us to learn that proper SWOT analysis is of major concern. In this particular case study, we can understand that the WTC crisis, the attack on the World Trade Center, in the month of September 2001, actually embarks a devastation of the Lehman Brothers because of its wrong decision making. So the current scenario is actually quite similar as it is quite sensitive, occurring at a global level. So it helps us to understand how carefully we need to conduct the overall pestle analysis, that is the political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, legal, and ecological aspects, and also the SWOT analysis, that is the analysis of the strengths and weaknesses in terms of the existing opportunities and threats from the external business environment. This is very, very important, and the core application of the SWOT analysis and pestle analysis is of major concern. So, my dear guys, I really wish that this particular case study discussion would help you immensely to actually understand the core facets of the overall functioning of an economy at a large level and also at a micro level. So it was a pleasure for me also to conduct this session. You can obviously post your queries and post your feedback regarding this particular session in the comment section. Thank you so much. Namaskar.